Hello, Erin from Morehouse Farm here with today's knitting tip, which is how to catch floats when you're doing color work. What that means is, if you look at the back side, we need to carry a yarn behind here, and you can see this one's big enough for me to catch my finger in. A lot of knitters worry that that's something that's going to happen often, but there's really nothing inside a hat that I need to worry about. First off, because when I wash it and block it, there's a little bit of felting that's going to start, not felting shrinking, but just fibers clinging together. That'll pin that down. And then there's nothing on my head that's really going to catch on these, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you are, you do have the ability to do what's called catching floats, which means twisting around the yarn. See how that little bit of greenish is on the outside of the blue? Just pinning it down to the work so that you don't need to worry about big long runs. When you do this though, you got to pay attention to the stretchiness, meaning this has still got to give quite a bit or your hat isn't going to fit properly. Okay, so here's how we do it. First, I'll show you my preferred style. I tend to be a picker when I knit, and that means I'm going to knit halfway through, because I think 3 is a good number, or 4, totally up to you. And then I'm going to grab the yarn, and they're getting to be almost the same color here, so it's a little harder to see. This darker one on top, I'm going to go under the lighter blue and grab that yarn that I'm working with. And what that does is it allows the natural progression of the knitting here, see with this light blue, to get tucked in under the dark blue to move right along and stay close to the knitting. Now, I need to make sure that all this stretches, because when I knit the light blue now, I want to make sure that this gives. If I had pulled this really tight, right, because I don't want to waste any yarn, now look at my hat, it doesn't stretch. It's not going to give when I put it on. So that's something you need to be super aware of and make sure that you're able to stretch your knitting every couple of stitches. I like to do 6 or 8 or thereabouts. And see how that even pulled this stitch to be tight? I need to even that out so that it won't pucker when I'm blocking it later on. Okay, so let's try this again, and as the colors change, it'll get a little more interesting. So there's 2 for the dark and a variegated color, and I am stretching it out here just to make sure that it lays nice and flat. Again, I want to make sure that light blue doesn't hamper the pattern or the stretchiness of the fabric as I move along. And now I've got 1, 2, 3. Now that was from underneath. Now I want to grab it on top, and that may mean repositioning the yarn in my fingers, okay, to grab it over, which just gives that little bit of a pull so that the light blue is stuck behind what is now gold. Okay, and now see how those are all nice and close together? We want to stretch it out, and that did pull on the light blue a little bit to make sure that it'll still have some stretchiness and some give. And I think that's one of the most under-talked about things in color work is, yes, you want to have gauge, which is 3 stitches to the inch or whatever it calls for, but it's gotta stretch. If it won't stretch, it won't fit. Think about a neckband. You wouldn't be able to get it over your head if it didn't stretch. So that's why it's so important to be thinking about how you're going to catch the floats, but still give it stretchiness. Now, if you are a picker or a thrower style knitter, that was picking, okay, we're going to knit to where we need to be. And notice I've got 1 in one hand and 1 in the other, or you could do 2 in one hand, but I just need to twist the yarn around here so that it catches that blue up against the knitting, and then I can continue knitting with the gold. All right, and then I do need to stretch that out a little bit before I go knit with another light blue one, because I want to make sure, and here I am trying to remember which side I'm knitting with, which hand, because they both work. Okay, stretch that out so that it continues on. Or you may find that you want to do one of each. And that can help with yarn management so they don't get tangled. Because if you're constantly crossing one over the other, I'll show you here, 1, 2, 3. Now if I need to go under this one, every time I twist that, that yarn is going to travel the twist all the way down into the ball. So the next time I would want to twist them in the opposite direction to undo that. Make sense? You need to go back and forth, alternating, so that you don't end up with a giant twist down at the ball of yarn. So that's another thing that would be good to be aware of as you're knitting along. I like this one in each hand because it does allow you, as long as you pay attention to that, to prevent some of the tangling that happens. And we'll just finish up this round. Getting close, looks like. And see how this way always keeps the one color on the top and the other one on the bottom, so you don't have to worry so much about tangling. All right, so keep it loose and don't forget to stretch it behind, even if it means maybe you need to pull a little bit out in the stitches to make sure that you've got that give. Happy knitting from Morehouse Farm.